I tell the people I work with, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it, right? There's the you thing that matters, that the world is different because you existed, because you lived, because you, like you talked about, audaciously reached out for those things that you desire. So, and so that's what I believe in my life as well, as there's those things that are uniquely me. And for me, it's life mastery. It's the course I have, it's the book title that the book that I authored, and it's the life that I'm trying to live. And so I try and provide resources and tools for people to do that, strategies to overcome what's standing in the way of that impact you're supposed to have.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to equip you with the tools, insights, and inspiration to live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here sharing this space with you, and I sincerely appreciate you taking a moment out of your day to join us. Together, we'll explore profound conversations that encourage you to embrace your unique journey and take bold steps towards realizing your dreams. Imagine a tree standing in a vast forest. Its roots dig deep into the earth, anchoring it firmly while its branches stretch wide toward the sky, reaching for the sunlight. Just as the way the tree thrives by knowing its place in the ecosystem, so do we as we flourish when we understand our identity and purpose. Our roots represent our values, beliefs, and experiences that shape who we are. In contrast, our branches symbolize our aspirations, dreams, and the impact we wish to have on the world. When we nurture our roots, our sense of self, we can grow confidently towards our purpose, reaching heights we never thought was possible. Today's guest is featured Mark Collins. He's a dedicated life and business coach with a passion for helping individuals unlock their potential. With a wealth of experience, Mark specializes in guiding early stage entrepreneurs to overcome challenges like the Imposter Syndrome and to embrace their authentic selves. He's the author of Life Mastery, and his transformative framework is designed to help people live life intentionally across various dimensions, including spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, and financial. Mark's insights into identity, purpose, and overcoming barriers are incredibly relevant as we navigate the complexities of personal and professional growth. His unique perspective draws from his own journey, which empowers listeners to reflect on their past and strive for that audacious life that we all envision. So now that we've got you all set, let's turn to our conversation with Mark. Enjoy. Hey, Mark, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure, my friend, for you to be here. Thanks for making the time to do this.
Absolutely, Audley. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, we were, and I am too. I mean, I oftentimes talk about how it really is a blessing to kind of engage in these types of dialogues. I mean, if you think about it for a second, Mark, we have an opportunity. We're going to sit here and talk about some great stuff, undoubtedly, and those on the outside have an opportunity. And I'm going to use the word eavesdrop. They have an opportunity to eavesdrop in our conversation, and they can potentially take away something that they can use in their own lives to get them to a better place. Like that, there's no losing in that at all. There isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited for it.
So you are a life coach, life and business coach, and you assist individuals to talk about getting to a better place. That's very much what you do. And it's in line with what we do on this podcast. We very much believe that, we encourage everyone to live their best audacious life. And that pathway is going to look very, very different for all of us because we all have different obstacles, different challenges, but still our pathway nonetheless to go down, and very important that we take those steps because you don't know where they'll lead, right? That you take that chance, you're audacious enough to move forward. But in the end, I believe, and you probably will imagine you would feel similar, that step we take was one that we're supposed to take. That direction that we moved in is what we always should. Although we were questioning it, we weren't sure about it, we doubted it, that was the right direction in the end. And sometimes we do it directly. Sometimes we kind of we take we circumvent it by taking another route to get to where we're supposed to be. But that ultimately is the destination. So as a starting point, I've done a lot of talking here. So maybe as a starting point, we can open it up and have you talk to our listeners a little bit. Invite yourself in to talk about the work that you do, how you help individuals live their life by design, and what you've been up to up until this point.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Audley, and I love what you were saying about that audacious life. I tell the people I work with, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it, right? There's the you thing that matters. That the world is different because you existed, because you live, because you, like you talked about, audaciously reached out for those things that you desire. So, and so that's what I believe in my life as well. As there's those things that are uniquely me, and for me, it's life mastery. It's the course I have. It's the book title that the book that I authored, and it's the life that I'm trying to live. And so I try and provide resources and tools for people to do that, strategies to overcome what's standing in the way of that impact you're supposed to have. And so for me, it's really helping people understand, first and foremost, these strategies aren't something that was a great idea I had. It wasn't something that I thought, wow, everybody else needs this. I should give this to them. It was me living out that journey in my own life and really trying to figure out how to unpack and how to uncover the person I believed I could be, what I call that hero in hiding, that I believed I was meant to be, but I wasn't always living, that there was always things that were standing in the way. For me, it was growing up and really trying to overcome imposter syndrome, fear of failure, those things that told me
Mm,
I couldn't, right? And you're either, as I tell people, living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And like I do, oddly, every one of us has a life that's told us something. And many times it's the mistakes we've had, it's those challenges we couldn't overcome, it's the things that we struggled with or the failures that we've had that start to have a voice in our lives and telling us, well, you can't do that. You're not smart enough,
right.
you're not good enough, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough, whatever the things are, right?
Yep.
That inner dialogue that stands in the way. Well, those are the things I needed to overcome in my own life. And when I started to see that it wasn't a me journey, but a we journey in this, oddly, that I found that I haven't met a person yet, apart from a transformational strategy, who wasn't challenged or struggling with,
Yeah.
whether it's imposter syndrome, fear of failure, or something that's stopping you from living that audacious life, from really reaching out for that impact that you're meant to have. So spent my time doing it and living it first, documenting it second, and then giving it away third. And that's the journey I'm on now.
I love it, and I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your story because I think it's real value and understanding that you didn't just wake up and like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. There's a process for yourself, and that process
Yeah.
it undoubtedly informs the work that you do with your clients, and maybe gives you a little bit of credibility as well in the process too, right? But it's
Yeah.
important that even as to be able to effectively coach people to have that understanding of where they're at. The piece I'm always curious about, I'd love to hear, and maybe from your perspective and your own story, is what was the impetus? Like, there's oftentimes that spark that encourages that change or that awakening. Like, I oftentimes use an analogy when we talk about awareness, right? So if you picture a living room. And in the living room, you've got your sofa and your couch and your TV and your
Yeah.
coffee table, right? And if you turn off that light, those items are still there, right? But so the awareness is that light switch that turns it on and makes you see that they always were there. They weren't something that the light switched to bring those things there. So yeah, I'm just curious from your perspective, what was your impetus or what was your light switch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there were a couple of them, but one that I would probably talk about is, so I grew up with a dad who was, very strong personality in our house, very, that kind of, the old school, the nuts and bolts kind of guy, hard as nails, that kind of guy that, just get through it, suck it up and all of those kind of things. Well, it was a father that I didn't really feel like I could ever measure up to. And you always are trying to, as a son, measure up to the dad that you have.
Hmm.
Lucky for me, I had a dad and he did his best with what he knew. Um, so growing up, I started to figure out, first off, there was this guy on the inside, right? The person I believed I could be. I believed I had more in me than what I was giving, more of a life than what I was living.
Hmm.
And so I looked at what the world had for you. So it's, well, you success it away, right? You look at nowadays it's social media. I'm old enough that back in the day there was no social media, but it was still the same idea of, well, when you succeed at something, everything else will come into line. So, I tried business success and was successful. Tried academics. I got my college degree. Athletics. I got my black belt in martial arts, and
Hmm.
at all of these places, I got to that mountaintop, which was, whatever the goal was that I had. And that imposter syndrome, fear of failure just came along for the ride.
Right.
So I was working in a strategy that the world says and that people around you say, and that you look at successful people and you think, well, everything's perfect because I have my business or I have my degree or whatever it is, your income, your possessions, your title, your role. And found out that what that was supposed to bring, it didn't. And in that place, but there was still this thing on the inside saying there's more than the life I'm living. Not that I wasn't having, some level of success in my life. We all have that in our life, but it didn't change who I believed I was. And it didn't change that fight inside that woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning with anxiety because I'm working on
Right.
a business. And it's not that there's going to be something in business that fails, it's that I'm going to be a failure. Right. It's not the thing we walk through or the experience we have, it's the identity statement we take from it
Right.
that many times is a struggle in our life. And so for me, it was seeing first and foremost what I thought and what everybody else said was going to get me there didn't. But there was still this thing on the inside. Went through a personal development phase, books, teachers, courses, everything I could afford to get for free. Right. I tried in my life, and many of them brought habit that brought change, but none of them brought transformation. And
Gotcha.
as long as I kept up those habits, I was able to fight off that imposter syndrome, that fear, that anxiety, whatever the thing is, that you're dealing with. Those were the things that were mine, but none of them got me over it. I was always trying to reconvince myself of who I was hoping I was instead of the guy I felt like I was. And so
Mm,
for me, there was a bit of a faith walk. I became a Christian, and in that faith walk, there was a starting to unpack some instructions and ideas that maybe the thing isn't the outward outcomes of my life, but an inward journey of understanding who I was created to be. So for
mhm.
the work we do, everything's identity, but it was in that place of trying everything else that couldn't bring the transformation, that brought the promises, but didn't bring the fulfillment.
Right.
And in that place, trying to figure out, well, if this is the person I'm created to be, if I can be more than where I'm at, then how do I get there? And it was certainly a journey, but it brought me to the place of understanding what I tell people is my wife doesn't let me have a tattoo, but if I did, it would say this: identity is everything. When you discover who you're created to be, your life doesn't have to make up the difference, and you can unleash who you are in that, like your language in that audacious life.
So thank you for that, and so much of what you said resonates, and I feel like it probably can go 4 or 5 different directions, but I think the identity piece is really key because uh, it then gives the actions you take purpose, right?
Yeah,
If you're very clear, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what's important to me, this is where I want to go, right? If you can answer those 4 questions and be very clear on what those are, then all the actions that you take in life, you can make the determination, okay, is this
yeah,
fitting into this box, any of those boxes? Because if it doesn't, I need to question whether I want to continue. And not to say that we can't do things that aren't in line with those areas. Not to say, I'm not saying no, you can. You absolutely can, but you have to recognize that they're not pointing you in the direction that you want to go. And so that purpose to me is kind of like a compass, right? This is my purpose, and
yeah.
here's what I'm moving towards.
Yeah, and then what I tell people that I work with is if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your identity, your life has to make up the difference. So I have to be successful in business and my relationships have to be perfect because those issues, those challenges, right? Whether it's fear, anxiety, worry, stress, right? Those things come up in those places where my outward world isn't making up that difference for who I
Right.
am. So what I mean is many times we're reaching for success to prove that we're somebody of value and worth without realizing that you have value before you started and you'll have the same value when you finish. It's not in the things you do, it's in who you are that it matters.
Mhm. Very much so. And I think when the more people recognize that, the less hazy or foggy your life can get, right? Because I think that lack of identity, that lack of understanding purpose and maybe you can let me, I'm speaking off the top of my head, but maybe you can fill me in, like that in my perspective seems to be the biggest issue for a lot of people from living their audacious life.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to generalize, but I think it's the truth that we all want to have a life of impact. We all want to have a life of purpose. We all want to have meaning for why we're here, right? At whatever level you're wrestling with that in your own head. And I think
Hmm.
that's right. I think every person has an impact they're supposed to have. The challenge is when we're believing the lie that says that, well, the impact is only in the outcomes that you have. And in that place, we chase after them and feel no more fulfilled. You know, people oddly as well as I do, whether they're on TMZ or they're on social media and they get to a level of success and then their life is a train wreck, or they're amazing at one aspect, business or whatever. And then you find out the relationships are a disaster. I have clients like that thought that, you know, if I can succeed in one area, that'll change who I am. And in that place, you just really show up as who you are everywhere. And unfortunately, your world can't make up the difference, and so you can't have the outcomes. But the innate understanding is there is an impact and a purpose for your life. And in that place, if you allow yourself to understand, well, what is it? What is the me factor? What I tell people is you're the secret sauce to the
Mm,
life that you're walking into. You're the secret sauce to the things that you're involved in. It's not some skill set you have. It's
right.
the character of who you are that makes the difference. When you start to
Mm,
understand that, now all of a sudden I can feel more like I can be unleashed as the hero I'm created to be, not trying to, work something up to prove who I am.
yeah, no, that's key, and I think that when you know that, man, that's you're well on your way. Um, I wonder if we can talk about the imposter syndrome, and specifically, if you could give me some insights from your perspective, why it's so powerful, the grip it can have on people. We hear about um, uh, people's lives being upheaved, right, because of what the imposter syndrome does and has done to individuals. Just wondering your perspective. What makes it so powerful?
Um, so I think in my own life, the thing that was making it so powerful was, so you go into life believing a certain thing. So with me growing up as we all have our own stories. We all have our life that talks to us, the pain, the past, the life we walked through. And so for me, it was having a father that I tried to measure up to that I really never felt like I could.
Okay.
And so it's in that place that you feel like you're not good enough, that but you're still striving for those things, right? So business was gonna make up the difference, or academics, athletics. So the things I used, everybody has their own tools that they use to try and prove
Mhm.
worth. And in that place, here's the truth of the matter. What I tell people is this: who you think you are, you'll become. And the challenge is you'll never have more or be greater than you believe you're able to or you have the ability to. And so that young man growing up feeling like he wasn't good enough, but I'm trying to strive in business. Well, those feelings don't go away. Like I talked about, that identity statement doesn't leave just because you're trying to succeed. It comes along and it has a voice. And so when I'm trying to succeed in business, there's this feeling that comes up, oh, I'm not good. What I tell people is when your income is outpaced by your expenses in business, right?
Right,
Where
right.
the expenses happen on a regular basis, but sometimes the clients don't come through with their payments. All of a sudden you can start to feel like the business is going to fail. And again, it's not that the experience is failure, but that I'm a failure.
Mm,
So we all have a voice that are telling us something. So imposter syndrome simply says this: you're not good enough, you're not capable enough, you're not able to. It's not, maybe not something anybody else tells us, but it's this feeling on the inside, man,
right.
I don't know if I can do this. And then you use your experiences and the challenges you walk through to convince yourself that that's the truth.
Mm,
And,
mm,
and so, you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. We all have had a life that have told us things, and many times it's told us things that are a lie that we believed. And then you start to live it out. And one of the ways that you live it out is, the term imposter syndrome. It could be fear of failure, it could be anxiety, it could be worry, it could be stress. Whatever those, I call them symptoms, are, the root cause is an identity statement that's a lie you've believed.
mm. The piece around imposter syndrome, which rings out to me, is that and very what makes imposter syndrome very problematic is the comparison, right? There's an
Yeah.
aspect of that where we're looking at our lives and we're looking at who we are as individuals and seeing everyone else out there, and we're like, oh man, like oh geez, I don't belong, I don't measure up, kind of a thing. And I think that's where I believe one of the ways we guard ourselves from the imposter syndrome is really working to our strengths, right? So
Yeah.
we all have innate strengths and skills and abilities that we do better than anyone else. We all got that thing
Yeah.
that like we just nail it, and that's not and we're in our zone. We're there. We feel good about it, and we don't think twice. It's a second nature. Everyone has that thing, and so imagine you can find a way to be in that place. You can't, maybe not there all the time, but find a way to stay in that zone as much as possible. And I'm a big basketball guy, right? When a guys get hot and hitting 3 or 4 3-pointers a row, he's in the zone, right? They talk about and that feeling. And when you ask, you ask the greatest players in the world, like how, and they just say, "Yo, I just got there." And they don't necessarily know what the trigger was, or it may have been something, but they know that's their sweet spot, so to speak. And so I think
Yeah.
there's much to be said about being very clear on what our individual sweet spots are, because we all have them. We absolutely all have them. It's a matter of doing what we can to get there. I think that will be a really good way of guarding against this imposter syndrome we're talking about.
No, I love that. And if I could unpack that a little deeper. So one of the things we do is we create an I am statement. So
Hmm.
so part of the tools strategy we use is first off to create an I am statement. Who are you? And what I tell the people is it's who you are apart from your past, right? The life that's talking to you. It's apart from your experiences. Experiences are things you walk through. They're a horrible identity statement. And so you're apart from your past and apart from your successes. Because many times we use success as a substitute for identity. I matter because I have this income, I have this zip code, I have this business title, I have these outcomes in my life, right? NBA champion. I matter because I have this thing.
Yep.
So you separate that and you separate the other. The person looking back in the mirror is the person you're created to be. It's a person of empowerment, it's a person of strength, it's a person of value and worth. And so in basketball, it's interesting because the skill set is me making the jumper, good defense, great, cardio because I'm running up and down the court. You don't substitute me out. I'm the guy that hits the winning shot all of the time. I'm the guy
Yep.
that puts in all the numbers, right? But here's the interesting thing. That's not who you are. That's an outcome of who you are. Who
Yes.
you are as a person of character and integrity, a person of diligence and worth, a person of strength, a person of tenacity, a person of focus, right? So for us, an I am statement, if I was that basketball player, would be those things I just talked about. And the interesting thing is when I understand who I am as that person, well, who I am in basketball is who I am in relationships. I'm still that person of tenacity, of strength, of fortitude, right? Of commitment, all of those things that make you you in your business realm, make you you elsewhere. And so as you can start to unpack some of those things, well, now I understand I'm walking into my job. Well, when you understand who you are, you understand the impact you're supposed to have. What I tell people is you're the answer to the room you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. When my outcomes have to tell me who I am, I got to
Right.
succeed so that I can prove I'm worthy. Imposter syndrome comes in to stop you, and you always feel like you're the question to be figured out. I don't know if I can blank, whatever the thing
Right.
is. If I can have a successful relationship, if I can make that money, if I can, make this presentation in the boardroom or in front of these people or whatever the thing is that's you. But when you know that you're the answer walking into the room, you also know what that answer is because, again, basketball player, I'm that guy of diligence and fortitude. I'm that guy that's
Yep.
consistent and persistent in my life. And so I am in my relationships. And so I am when I'm in those corporate meetings. And so I am when I'm hanging out with my friends. You can count on me because this is who I am. This is the answer I bring to every circumstance I'm walking into. Circling back to purpose, the thing you talked about.
Hmm.
There's a chapter in my book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default.
Hmm.
And the title gives the whole thing away. I tell them your character's your calling.
Yes.
It's not the thing you do, basketball player, corporate
No.
representative,
Right.
millionaire business owner,
I love that.
whatever.
Love it.
It's the character of who you are. You find your purpose in when you find out who you are, because in that place, it's not the outcomes that make me who I am. It's the investment I bring, the answer that's me, the secret sauce of who I am that's invested in those things, in my relationships, in my business, and in my life.
Mm. I love that. Your character is that. It's so, and I think I really believe when we talk about um, uh, uh, your life's purpose
Yeah.
and and finding that audacious path, it goes very much hand in hand with your character and who you are. If you want your journey to be one that's true and authentic, then you need
Yeah.
to know exactly who your character is and what you stand for and what you're about. Um, because if not, I have this image of a tree is in the wind just getting blown side to side. Like you've got to be firm as opposed to one with firm roots that are deeply rooted and the big
Yeah.
massive oak that's not going nowhere, regardless how hard the wind is blowing. Like that's where I think that's what the goal when we talk about what we should strive to. That oak tree is what we want to be, as opposed to that little branch just flapping back in the wind. So yeah, I think character is a huge component of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I love what you said there. I have three children. They're all adults now. And of course, I'm just reached 60 this last year. So, the
Congratulations.
older you get, the more you look more towards legacy rather than
Yep.
accomplishment. What's going to be left behind when I'm gone. And the truth of the matter is, I could be the most successful person out there. And so the finances I leave behind, my family will appreciate, but the person I was to them is what they'll remember. And in that place, your impact is what's left behind when you're gone. And it's not your possessions. My father passed away in 2019, and part of the transition was moving my mother in with one of my sisters. And so we sold all of the possessions, sold their home, sold everything on the inside. And there was things that mattered to my parents, right? It was the things that they had on the wall. It was the little, knickknacks and doodads that were
Yes,
a part
yes,
of
yes.
their life, and they surrounded themselves with. Every single one of them we sold. Many of them we threw away because they had value to my parents. They had value to nobody else. And myself and my siblings, when we talk about my dad and now my mom, when she passed in 2023, we never talk about the things that they had. We talk about who they were and how who they were
Absolutely.
impacted who we are. So I totally resonate with that. That's absolutely the truth. Your impact is who you are long after you're gone, the things that people say about you and how you made them feel and what you brought to the relationship.
I'm a father of three myself, and my kids are all older, and we sit around the table. I'm the brunt of all their jokes, right? But I love it because that's what we walk away with. That's what I walk away reflecting on, and it doesn't matter if who cares what we're how big the house was or all the shiny cars, the tools, the toys, all that kind of stuff. That was about it's how you made them feel, and it's funny when we get in those pick on dad sessions, right? You literally feel the energy. Right, the energy raises, and usually it's me being defensive, going, "No, that's not true. I didn't do that." Like it's a lot of that kind of stuff. Or I don't do that, or whatever it is. They're making fun of you, but that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if you can strive to that, I mean, I think, that again, the legacy is huge, and that's part of what your legacy is. And so thank you for raising that point. You touched on your book a couple times, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, not by Default. Life Mastery. Do we ever master life, man? It seems like it's an ongoing process.
It depends on your definition. And so for me, the definition we use is life mastery is living from who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in every area of your life. And so for us, we put it into five big buckets: the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, financial. And so for us, it's not trying to, use somebody else's term for excellence in these areas of life, but it's saying, hey, who are you created to be? The thing we unpack first is identity. And it's
Right.
saying, okay, well, now that I know who I am, what's the highest level of life I'm meant to live? What's the impact I'm supposed to have in business? What's the intimacy and the vulnerability and authenticity I'm supposed to bring to relationship? What's the stewardship I'm supposed to bring to my finances? And how am I supposed to physically live so that I can be, healthy and vibrant every day of my life for all of my life, right? What are the things that are the maximum level life that I'm meant for? And so for us, life mastery is that. And so it is a very clear definition that we know. But where it becomes something that's a journey that you've talked about is when you start to have that vision. So I'm 60 years old. Who I was at 40 isn't who I am at 60, because I've grown and developed and hopefully matured and gained some wisdom and even skill sets. But the vision I had back then, when you achieve the vision of where you're at, does that mean that's the end of it? No, it means that, okay, now where? So you're right. It is that ongoing path of, as it says in scripture, going from strength to strength and glory to glory. It's going from this level of I've achieved these things in my life, or I've had this impact in my life. Well, what more can I do? What more can I give? Because for me, it's the definition of success versus fulfillment. We very clearly give you a delineation, which is success is really just becoming good at a skill set, working hard enough, long enough, outworking the competition, and being the first person in. Fulfillment, I believe, is you living out the passion of your life, living out this thing that is you, right? The thing that, like you talked about, that zone, the flow they call it sometimes.
Hmm.
It's this thing that you effortlessly give time to, and effort and energy, that you have to be pulled away to go do other things. A thing that's like, that this is absolutely me living out who I'm created to be when you're doing that thing. Maybe it's you with podcasting or business or whatever.
Sure.
It certainly is me with life mastery. It's knowing that, man, this is me. This is what I want to give my life to, because this is who I am. That's what fulfillment is. And so
Yes.
it's understanding that, but knowing that, well, now that I've given myself to this, now what's the impact I can have? For us, the goal is fulfillment. It's never success. And that looks like life mastery lived out in the ways we talked about.
Yeah, no, it must be wonderful to watch play out in people. I mean, you mentor and coach people. I mean, we must just watch that part of the process because as you know, coaching isn't giving the answers, helping people uncover the answers, and
Yeah.
and oftentimes it's just that nudge to go, hey, have you thought about this or another perspective? But the answers have always been
Yeah.
within. But it must be a lot of fun to watch people go, oh my gosh, that eureka moment.
No, no, absolutely. I think there's great joy in it, but there's also this satisfaction, like I'm sure with you, Audley, that I know where they've been because I've been there. That guy that was desperate to change, trying everything and trying to figure out, is it me? Is there a fault in me? Is there something in me that isn't working? Am I, is this all I'm meant to have and I should just give up and live here? And in that place when you're kind of desperate for that change or that transformation and not knowing where to find it, so to be able to provide those tools for people, knowing that you've been where they're at and you also know where they're going and it's going to be glorious in their life, to me, that's great. And then the stories and the accomplishments in their life and how they've changed and you start to see them grow and develop into those places, into that life mastery life we call it.
Yep.
That's those aha moments that it's like, man, it's been worth it. Late nights, early mornings, all the work and
Yeah.
effort that's put into it.
Yeah.
These are the reasons, right? This is the treasure you take from it, is the transformation you have, the ability to help people live.
Yeah. Yeah. I also appreciate the fact that you identify, and not that people would be shocked or surprised to know that, but this, we're not just talking about our business life or just our personal life. It affects everything: our marriages, our relationships, our careers.
Yeah.
We can find growth in all these areas, and I think when you can make that distinction, because at the end of the day, we are that same person in those different,
Yeah.
right? So that's important to be able to know that we can make changes in other areas of our lives.
No, you're absolutely right. I tell people this, the only person who believes that you can compartmentalize your life is the person doing it. Everybody else around them knows you can't. So, like you'd said, who you are in business is who you are at home. If you ignore one to try and succeed at the other, it will be to your own detriment. So, but that life mastery life and that audacious life for you, it's lived out in every area. I don't want to thrive in business and find that my home is a disaster,
Right.
or thrive in my family and find out that I lived small in business or in my job or the things I was doing because I was too afraid to put time into it. So, that life that that this is exactly what I have, it looks like that in all of those areas. So the investment in you is the investment in each of those areas to allow them to be where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. Primarily, and again, we talk about your work as a coach. Who do you primarily work with, Mark?
You know, I really resonate with the guys that I was a part of. So really for me, it's early stage entrepreneurs, typically Christian, but don't have to be, those guys that are really striving to be successful in business. They've either started one and they're running up against those challenges, or they want to start one and they're kind of fear of failure, imposter syndrome is getting you started. So, the guys that were where I was at are the ones that I typically resonate with, and I love really investing in them. Yeah, the message works for everybody, if I could give you that caveat, but you focus on where you've been, I think, because it gives you the most authority. And that was the man I was
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
early years, 20s, 30s, even into the 40s. So I love being able to invest in those guys. Message works for everybody. You could grab the
yeah.
book and have value in it, but the people I want to invest in that really have that deep work they can work on are those.
I'd love to lastly ask about your faith and how that's influenced your work. You mentioned you're Christian, and that sort of that was in your own personal journey that was helpful for you. How does that influence the work that you do with your clients?
For me, my faith is everything. And so behind it, we have 14 lessons. If you take out the welcome and the instructional one, there's 12 lessons that we give you. Each one of them has a scriptural basis for what we're doing. And even
Mhm.
beyond that, in my own life, I can't find my identity as a Christian apart from God. It doesn't mean that you can't have an identity that you understand, because I think we all innately know there's a person that we're created to be. And whether you have a faith walk or not, you can find, some ideas and understanding of who you are. But for me, it all starts with my walk with God. It was the transformational thing that went from, nice courses that brought change and gave you habits, to really being able to have a transformation and having an understanding that I was created for a purpose, on a purpose. So it informs everything I do. It is the person that I am lived out. It's just like the skin on my body. It's undeniably who I am. But yeah, so and how it works with my clients, whether they're somebody who is a person of faith or not, they can still have the impact right? You can still use tools to your success, even if you don't know the author of them. But for me, it gives me a vision into their life so that I can honestly and openly say there's a purpose for your life. There's a vision for who you're created to be. There's a reason why you're here. And in that place, it informs how I direct them. So it's not just, hey, let's find some cool things for you to do so you feel good about yourself, but it's, hey, let's find the impact that you're meant to have. And so it informs how I coach from the perspective of really investing in them for them rather than finding outcomes so that you can prove that I'm right in my tools.
Right. No, it's important, and I do think that it has a place in our overall development. And again, just having that faith, I believe, the belief that you have higher than yourself, it also humbles you, I think, too. And I think humility is an important aspect of this walk and journey. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the insights today. They've been absolutely awesome. For listeners, Mark, that want to connect with you or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Well, oddly, I try and be a one-stop shop. So my one-stop shop is my website. Okay. It's freedom-4-life.net, freedom-4-life.net. You can go out there. My Life Mastery course is out there. I also have an ebook version, an electronic version of my book there. So you can put it on every device that you have. So go out there, check out. I have a free diagnostic tool, but the one main thing that I'd want you to check out is that course, because it's the one that's going to transform your life. If you want to talk to me personally about Life Mastery and what Life Mastery can do for you, or if it's something that you should invest in, you can reach me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom-4-life.net.
Amazing. And we'll also make sure all those contact details are in our show notes below. Mark, thank you for the time. This has been awesome. I really appreciate, again, like I said, the insights. I think there's great value, particularly for those who are dealing with imposter syndrome, or even because I sometimes think that you've got the imposter syndrome, you're in the midst of it and not even know that what it is. You just feel right, and that's a big one for a lot of people, right? And so to be able to sort of identify some of those keys and some of those key areas rather are important. So thanks for that, and thanks again for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Love being here, Audley. Thanks for the conversation.
Great. Back, we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Mark for being here. It really was a fun and insightful conversation. During our chat, Mark emphasized that understanding one's identity is crucial for achieving personal and professional success. He shares valuable insights on how to recognize and combat imposter syndrome, which can often hold us back from reaching our full potential. Mark's Life Mastery framework provides a holistic approach to living purposely, addressing essential areas of life that contribute to overall fulfillment. Moreover, he highlights the importance of leaving a meaningful legacy, reminding us that our character plays a significant role in shaping our calling as well as our impact on others. What I personally loved about this conversation was Mark's authenticity as well as vulnerability. His willingness to share his own struggles with identity and imposter syndrome made this conversation relatable and truly inspiring. It really enforced the idea that we all have the power to redefine our narrative and pursue lives filled with purpose. If you resonate with Mark's message and want to dive deeper into his work, I encourage you to connect with him directly. You can find all his contact details in the show notes below, along with links to his Life Mastery course and other valuable resources. Mark is also offering a free diagnostic tool available on his website, which can help you assess your current life situation and discover opportunities for growth. Be sure to check it all out. Again, it's definitely informative stuff. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. I hope you found inspiration and actionable insights to help you live your best audacious life ever. If you enjoyed the conversation, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share this podcast with family and friends if you haven't already done so. Your support helps us to grow and reach even more individuals who are ready to embrace their audacious journeys. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.